morning, good afternoon, and very good evening to everyone. I am Majid, Executive Director of Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation and Director of Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation. I'm delighted to welcome you all to the APCAM 10th webinar. And APCAM is an international ADR center formed jointly by 10 institutions from Asia Pacific countries. Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation not only vows to provide the best services as an institute to resolve commercial disputes through ADR, but also pledges to develop the idea of it as a dispute resolution mechanism. The best way to achieve the said objective is by nurturing the idea of arbitration and mediation as a dispute resolution process in student and the general public through academic mediums and discourses. Such discourses can be conducted in present day world using webinars. This 10th webinar of APCAM series is a step to fulfill APCAM's vision to establishing the best standard of professionalism and credibility for the business community to help create a better environment for the community and get unbiased professionals that resolve disputes timely and efficiently in the best possible way. Today's topic is handling difficult parties in mediation. Successful mediation generally requires all parties to make concession when it comes to their behavior, which is often made easier by parties gaining an understanding of the perspective and feelings of all those involved in the dispute. But what do you do when a party becomes difficult? It is not easy overcoming the challenge of mediating with those whose points of view, arguments, outlooks, or conduct you do not understand. Difficult people and the disputes that they are part of rarely go away by themselves. Nevertheless, with the appropriate effort and skills employed, it is possible to get such people to the mediation settlement with that will put an end to the conflict. When it comes to the difficult or dealing with the difficult people, it can be very tough to just grin and bear it until you realize that everyone has their own personality traits and types and quirks. So who are the difficult parties? What skill sets do we need to use? Whether it is a myth or fact that difficult parties or the difficult situation or difficult parties, ever exist. So, and that exactly what we are going to discuss here today in our webinar with our expert in the industry who has the knowledge in and expertise in handling mediation, whether it is difficult, complex, multi-party, or simple situations. So for introducing our guest, for the speakers for today, I would like to introduce Delcy Legonis. She is ADR, she's director for ADRC Australia. And Delcy Legonis is one of the leading international mediators and ADR practitioner in Asia Pacific region and Latin America. And she is a founder and chairwoman of the Australasian Dispute Resolution Center. Delcy worked with dispute as a World Bank consultant. So welcome, Delcy. Happy to have you here. And we have our next speaker, Mr. JP Singh, senior advocate and mediator from India, a well-known civil, commercial, and arbitration lawyer, and as an accomplished mediator. He has been the founder and organizing secretary for the Samadhan, that is the Mediation Center in Delhi High Court. And he was a member of the panel constituted by the Supreme Court of India for recommendation of the legislation on mediation. Welcome, sir. And we have Dr. Francis Law, who is the president of Academy of International Dispute Resolution and Professional Negotiation, chairman of International Dispute Resolution and Risk Management Institute, chairman of Hong Kong International Mediation Center, president of Hong Kong Mediation Center, chairman of Hong Kong Center of International Commercial Arbitration, and above all, vice chair for Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation. Welcome, sir. And lastly, we have Mr. Anil Xavier, is the president of Indian Institute of Arbitration and Mediation, the chairman for Asia Pacific Center for Arbitration and Mediation, and the head of accreditation committee, integration committee of the Asian Mediation Association, that is AMA, And he was also the member of the panel constituted by the Supreme Court of India for the recommending legislation on mediation. So welcome you all. So these are the gems from the industry we have today. And with them, I would like to start with a common question to understand first that what is a difficult party? Who are the people who can be called as a difficult party? So for this, I would like to ask first Dr. Law that based on your experience in mediation among the parties, before you whom you consider as a difficult party, and how do you identify them that they are a difficult party?
Thank you very much, Irene. Thank you for introduction. And to the questions, we have a lot of cases whereby we will do the mediation for the party. But in fact, well, in the dictionary of mediator, we normally will not say that difficult party, but we say that they are strong, polarized, positional party. They have their own position and stick to that very much. And so what we can see is basically they are in a very common situation. Normally they are so excited and getting to be aggressive in the process and projecting their own mind of their own position. And in their world, the only way to handle that situation is on their position thinking. According to the theory of the dispute, most situation, the party will start in a psychological situation whereby they think that the only way to handle is according to their expectation. That is what they think the only way can handle their process or handle the situation or problem. So they will be very stick to that way and taking aggressive way to protect the position either. In that situation, you will say they normally have a very strong emotion and they will be having an aggressive approach in defending for their own position in that mindset. So they have also the difficulty to presenting their own idea in a more direct way, and they have been situation receded. Most of the cases, they are not well-organized party. They will have the limitation in the way to constructively thinking all their need and aware to what they have a real concern on. And that's why they perform like this difficult person. Actually, they are just protecting or taking as a strategy in protecting their position, what they think is correct and is beneficial to them. So in that cases, we will see in the mediation when we notify that some party, they are in a situation whereby they think they have a strong polarized positional emotion or wills. So we will find that, as what we say, there are four main characteristics you can identify. One is they not really good in communication. So they don't know how to express themselves. They have not much understanding or constructive thinking. They will present to be a very, very aggressive or not reasonable with people, just stick to their position, what they think is correct. And finally, they will take all means to say that even aggressive or attacking other side in that way can protect their own position. That is a normal we can see. People, if you find it, is in a difficult situation, or you would say that it's a difficult party.
Oh, so if I understand correctly, what you mentioned about a difficult party, that the people who are not good at communication to represent or present their emotions correctly or directly or in a constructive manner, and they may be because of their emotions, they might get aggressive due to some reasons, and they stick to their positions. So, so I would like to know your view, Mr. Singh, on this.
Thank you, Iram. Taking forward from what Dr. Law said, people rooted in their positions, very emotional. See, when parties approach for mediation, they are already in a state of impasse. They face anxious moments and tension as they meet the other side after a long time. If we label them as difficult, actually we are giving them power over us. To me, a difficult party is someone who behaves in a way detrimental to his own interest. I think of him as well-meaning, because his behavior is driven by his needs. The satisfaction of mediation does not depend entirely or even primarily on the result. A wise mediator is not collecting strings of successes. As a mediator, we empower parties so that they can find the solution to their problems. Even if we are challenged or provoked by the parties, the experience is one we can work with to become better mediators or say better people. So in that sense, these difficult people, so-called difficult people, make you a better mediator. As a generic term, difficult party would mean one who stonewalls negotiation, delays or refuses offers, or makes outlandish demands. These difficulties may arise out of habit, high emotions, or even as a strategy. Remaining in conflict often seems to add a sense of excitement and meaning to their life. Let me give you an example. There was this person who had retired and he was in litigation for a number of years. When in mediation he was offered settlement terms, he would not take them. Because if the matter was settled, what will he do with his life? For him, it was so important that every day he would, prepare for the matter, go to the lawyer, work out strategies. Everything about his life centered around this case. And if this case was settled, he just did not want to let it go. So you may call him difficult, but look at the position from where he is working from. So these so-called difficult parties prevent us from reaching a settlement. They tend to dominate, demand too much attention, and are very disruptive. They will sabotage an agreement by raising fresh demands. I had an instance where if the person, he was the elder brother, his younger brother had died, and now the siblings were contesting that matter against him. So first he started with an apology. So the children said, we want to move on with our lives, we will give the apology. Then he said, no, the apology has to be a public apology. So everywhere they will go on adding something or the other so that an agreement is not reached. So you may call them difficult. They will not give their mind and deliberately misunderstand what the other side is saying. Some people suffer from emotional disturbances. That makes mediation potentially damaging psychologically. Some people come to mediation at a stage when they are not ready to be there. They need actually counseling before mediation. And what happens, an inexperienced mediator can make matters worse. It can inflame the parties' antagonism towards each other rather than resolving it. We sometimes assume that others are acting irrationally. Perhaps they see the situation differently. Think of people who fear flying. At some level, they believe that this plane will crash. It is the perception that is skewed. Once you trace their reasoning to its roots, it is sometimes possible to effect change. This change, of course, is not always possible on an obstinate party, a party who refuses to cooperate for vindictive reasons. People have emotions, deeply held values, and different backgrounds and viewpoints, and they are unpredictable. They have egos that are easily threatened. They see the world from their own personal vantage point, and they frequently confuse their perceptions with reality. In this situation, rational exploration of possible solutions is impossible. We have to keep working on separating the people from the problem, deal with the parties as human beings, and with the problem on its merits. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. With examples, support your answer with examples. So in addition to what Dr. Law said, so you said it may be a party may be identified as a difficult because out of their behavior, their habit, and maybe due to some strategy. So we need to see whether it is a strategy, whether it is their, habit, what we have to identify so that we can say that, yes, this is the trait, this is the, this is their habit or strategy, that because of that they have taken the difficult as a difficult party and all that shape. So thank you so much. With this, I would like to take your view, Delcy.
Thank you very much, Iram, and thank you to everybody who joined us today to listen to our stories and the perspectives we have in regards to this very interesting subject. So, how to identify a difficult party? I think we all know how to do it. Sometimes we don't know how to explain it, but we can see if there is a difficult party in our mediation, we can identify it. So I was thinking, how can we actually write down maybe some characteristics of these people with some challenges? I agree with my colleagues that calling them difficult, sometimes it doesn't help. I think for the purposes of training, of course, we have to use the right words, and they are difficult people. But of course, we wouldn't say this during a mediation session. We wouldn't say, oh, you are very difficult people. But in thinking, what are the characteristics of these people with these challenges? I thought that maybe there are 4 categories. The first one will be people who actually do not want to listen. There are people who, as Jipe said very rightly, might even use, this skill of communicating efficiently to overpower the other party, and sometimes to overpower the mediator himself or herself. So it's a person who doesn't want to listen and is constantly interrupting, right? So that, to me, would be one group. The second one will be a person who's very positional. Indeed, for many reasons. Maybe, again, I agree with what has been said so far, that maybe the mediation is too soon or too late. If a dispute has been going for such a long time, then it is very likely that the parties are positional. And if it is too soon, they are not ready yet. So very positional, they don't want to change or even listen to the other party's views. A third group will be very aggressive people. It can be people who want to put their positions and their opinions forward. So they are verbally, even sometimes abusive. And sometimes we have seen physically threatening people. In one case that I had some many years ago doing a mediation in Sydney, we actually had to have security guards outside the room because these were very complex mediations. And I remember underneath my desk, there was a button, and it was called the emergency button. And I was thinking, I am a mediator. Why these people want to hurt me? But sometimes you have people who obviously, the dispute is so big for them that they don't know how to manage their emotions, etc. And so it can be sometimes, the mediator can feel threatened. And that's why we had these security guards, and we used to press this button and somebody will come very quickly. Luckily, I didn't use this button very often, I think only once. But the fourth group will be somebody who's not genuinely, honestly interested in resolving the dispute. And I agree with JP again. There's some people who have made the dispute almost as a part of their daily lives. And so once they imagine this dispute finishing, then they have nothing that they can do, and so they hang on into this situation for such a long time where they come and they genuinely do not want to resolve the dispute. So how are the ways that I would normally identify these things in advance? Because of course, once you're in the mediation, you know what to do. Okay, there are some tools, but in my practice, I always conduct pre-mediation sessions, and there's been a lot of articles written about this. And I want to also make sure that we do not confuse an intake process with a pre-mediation process. An intake is mainly a process where either the organization or the mediator himself or herself takes basic information from the parties. That is the intake. The pre-mediation session, it is almost part of the mediation process itself, at least in my view. And in this confidential one-to-one session, the mediator can identify indeed if there are some difficulties, and in advance plan what can the mediator do to help this party, so the party, when he or she attends the mediation, it's gonna be a good experience for this party. So that's the first thing, a pre-mediation session. Now, if you didn't conduct a pre-mediation session for some reason and you are already in the mediation, you have one of these people with some challenges, then for me, the confidential sessions or the caucus is an opportunity to check this. So one-on-one, again, you try to explore why is this person so difficult in this mediation. Very often you will find that they tell you exactly what's going on, and then you are able to assist them. Then, of course, let's not forget the cultural points here. In some cultures, one person can be considered difficult, but maybe that is not really difficult. Maybe this is the way they are supposed to behave. And so we have to be aware again that there are some cultural, characteristics that for somebody from another culture might come across as a difficulty, even as an aggressive behavior, but in fact it is not. But all these things, of course, you as a mediator have an opportunity to check and to prepare in advance, so you can, when you have the mediation, all these situations can be not completely avoided, of course, but can be obviously controlled a little bit.
Thank you so much, Delcy. So everybody is pointing out the same factor, that is the people should, they become possessive to their dispute, and in other words, they become possessive to their perception, and they might become aggressive, and the difficult party may be the one who don't listen to the other party, and they keep on going on about their positions. And with this, I would like to now call upon Mr. Anil Xavier. Sir, what is your viewpoint on this? After hearing all the people, that would you like to highlight something different?
No, see, actually speaking, asking a question as to who is a difficult party itself is a very difficult question to answer. especially when you are asking me as the fourth panelist, because almost what is a difficult party and how do you face a difficult party and how you handle a difficult party has already been answered. And I was thinking when I was hearing all the three panelists, see, the question itself is difficult and you have made my life difficult. So I think the most difficult party now I see before me is you, because you have put me in a very difficult position. So let us say as a mediator, in a mediator's perspective, if we find a person who doesn't cooperate in the mediation process, or who doesn't seem to listen to you or to the other party, or suppose he seem to understand, or he doesn't seem to understand something which is logical according to you, you seem to carry an opinion that such party is unreasonable, or he is difficult, or he is confusing. But what I personally feel is to label a party as difficult is not right. I think the real task is to find out whether it's a difficult party or it's a problem behavior. So we need to understand that conflicts, disputes, or disagreements are all distressing experiences, especially when a party feels that his needs and interests are not taken seriously, because as JP said and as Francis said, if they are not taken seriously by the other party, he feels a little more extra stressed. See, stressful situation can bring the worst out of even the best people. So even if a party is non-cooperative at the beginning, I would say that we should take it as a normal behavior rather than considering him as a difficult party, and try to focus on the behavior, on his behavior, and try to find out the actual reason behind this behavioral pattern. See, but saying that most difficult behavior is accidental, but it can also be the result of an intentional thought. And sometimes it can be sudden, which could take us by surprise. But the common factor, as all the three others panelists said, an emotionally driven party could trip himself and not act in their best interest. In certain cases, when it is about pride or revenge, then logic will not always come on top. Especially, see, another thing is, of course, when you start your profession as a mediator, you may not find people as difficult. But when we do a lot of mediation, we tend to create an implicit bias when we see a party. See, for example, if a party resembles your father-in-law or mother-in-law, you tend to think that this is going to be a difficult party because it has nothing to do with his character, but it's a perception that we carry. So assumption and guesses could be wrong. Maybe I could give a clear example, which probably all the panelists would agree. See, if suppose we see Iram as a party before you, with her smile and demeanor, probably we think she would be a very soft party to handle. But all of us, the panelists, know pretty well how difficult it is for us to handle her. So the looks or assuming things or having the presumptions that this person would be good or he would be soft would often be wrong. So it was always, I'm so happy to hear that Delcy, that she said that we could actually identify a difficult party. But I should say it has always been a test for me to actually guess who is the difficult party. So I always take it as a policy that or try to be neutral in making a presumption about a party, and I would wait to go on with the mediation for a little longer to find whether such a behavior is intentional or is it accidental, so that we can handle it in a more peaceful manner. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, sir. So I think none of the panelists will agree with you on the last segment of your answer that I am a difficult party. I am as simple as I look. And yeah, and and yeah, so according to you, if I understand correctly, it is like if the parties are not taken seriously or if they feel that we are not being heard, and it might be their behavioral issues or maybe his behavior pattern, and you have to check whether it comes intentionally or it is accidental. So according to that, then it is good to label them as a difficult party, but initially if you will be labeling the party as a difficult party, that as JP sir also mentioned, that then you will be giving them, extra power or dominance over you. So with this question, is a common question, we come to know that the difficult party is maybe just because of the people who are emotionally charged, or the people who are not able to understand the difference between the position and interest, and the people who may be aggressive and who are not able to have a good communication skills. So these are the different characteristics which we have come to know from the first question, that which can be, the characteristics for the difficult party. So now for my second question, I would like to ask Dr. Francis Locke that if the parties and their respective lawyers have different styles of negotiation, like one is competitive or other is avoiding, or so different styles of negotiation, how do you feel the gap between their styles, and what are your recommendations to handle that issues? Because I feel that if the styles may be different by the parties, then also one party may take a difficult situation or difficult stand.
Thank you very much, Iram. Actually, you've been talking a very common situation whereby when mediator doing the mediation, especially for commercial or some related business dispute. So in most cases, when we handle is when the lawyer, the representative lawyer, and the party have different approach, different thinking, they have not been compromised or doing a collaboration at all, how to present their way of doing the mediation. And that will be obviously find that maybe one would be a competitive and other is avoiding, or one is getting a adversary, or the other is going to be aggressive, something like that. So that's very common, because what we say that as we have been working together in other part. And the reason really handle this is, in fact, the lawyer in the mediation should have a very proper guidance to lead the party to navigate in the whole mediation process. And it is a duty of the lawyer in the mediation to help the client to get the best interest through the process. Okay, so what we always advocated is we need a more professional lawyers to work for the clients in the process of mediation. That will be the duty of a mediation advocate. And we, as a team, we have agreed a long time that the mediation lawyer should have the possession of the skill set and the mindset, understand that using the mediation is completely different from that of a litigation. And if they have the very basic concept or skill set, they will be easy for the lawyers, being the advocate, to work with their clients, to work in mediation, have a match or well-designed strategy to go through the whole process. And you will not see this kind of difference among the lawyer and their respective client at all. But when we actually having been seeing the situation when there's not a mediation advocate, there's a normal lawyer in doing the mediation, so we still have to handle this case. So that our practice will be trying the party and the lawyer understand how the mediation really works. What is our purpose for letting the party in the process of mediation, what they really want to gain, and help them, the party and the lawyer themselves have built up a connection and the direction and formulate a very clear direction on using the mediation to help them. Or otherwise, if they are different or not matching, that will have a totally disaster for the client's interests. And so we will be having the opportunity, if we can, we will talk with the lawyer to let them understand how, in fact, going through the mediation can help the client in a better way. That is the party to use the mediation to gain not only from the legal point of view, but also from the overall or comprehensive interests they should have in the process, to make them, put them in a more, we say that in a stable emotion, and they have a clear or actual wise enough to make the decision in the whole process, which is consider all the interests among the parties. Okay, not only them, and also prepare themselves to have a proper way to negotiate with the other side. There's an exchange of interests, not trying to compete with the other side to get a zero-sum game, but in fact, by the collaboration with the other side, we'll have a more or a bigger protection for the client to get all the interests getting for both sides. We also say that a technical work is maximizing the client's interest through the whole process of mediation. So what we have to do, the skill set will be help the party and their lawyer have a alignment on their strategy and the direction in using mediation. Definitely, mediators have a lot of skill set can be used. Reframing and proper, we say that PPS, paraphrasing and perception check and summarizing. We have also the reality and doubt creation process, how them to consider what they are really match with their expectation, what is they really want, and whether it's realistic to talk with the other side exchange that will benefit for themselves. And finally, whether the result or the option proposed is actually workable and acceptable to the other side. And so in that way can help both party side and their lawyer have a better linkage, and they go direct in the mediation can really through the function of mediation properly. And basically it's good. So what we always say that if we as a mediator going through the case with an advocate for doing the case, that will be a very, very supportive for all clients. Otherwise, when we have only have a lawyer participate to representing their client, that will be a very difficult, not because they are difficult people, because of the process understanding is not really matched with the old mediation principle.
Thank you so much, sir. So according to you, if the lawyers will be trained into mediation advocacy and there is a skilled lawyer and they work with their client and structure the entire strategy in a very different manner, then it could be, easy for both the parties to collaborate. And a mediator needs to help the party and their lawyer to align with the process. so that the entire gap or the vacuum which is in the different style which has been come, and the one party or both the party may take a difficult position, or a very or they may be on their very rooted to their position. It could be diluted with the help of mediator in this manner. So this is the position which where when we are going for the private mediation, or where the parties are willing to mediate but their styles are different. But there are different situations as well where the parties are mandated by the court. And even though the style may not be very important at that point of time. So here I would like to ask JP sir that in court annexed mediation, sometimes one party is mandatorily asked to participate in mediation based on the court direction. So if a party is not interested to resolve, and since they have to be mandatorily participate, they could have creating a difficult position in that process. And also for the mediator, it is very difficult because they don't want to mediate, but because of the, because the court has mandated them to go for the mediation center and they don't want to bypass that order. So that is why they are in the mediation. So do you classify this person as a difficult party? And if this is the situation, then how you handle such parties, sir?
Iram, yes, when matters are referred by court, even section 89 says the court shall. Intention is to refer parties for mediation. It's not necessary that parties need to resolve the dispute. But unfortunately, if a party has a stay in his favor or really not interested in coming forward, they generally will come to you and say, we've come just because the judge has said, so we are here. We are really not interested, so you may close it. And that's the signal for you to do some small talk. And that's what I believe. I'll ask them about their background. I'll sit down with them, tell them, like, would you like to have a cup of coffee? I'll tell them, look, did you have problem finding the place? Did you have some problem in traveling? So do a little bit of small talk before you actually get into the thick of mediation. And that really helps. Tell them, now that you've come, let's sit down, let's just talk. I mean, we are not talking about resolving conflict or dispute, whatever your dispute may be. First, do small talk. After you've got them into the frame of mind where they really are, like, wanting to now get into what the dispute was or why they are in court, at that stage, see, what is important is in mediation, we look for good faith participation by the parties, meaning thereby that the parties are keen to find a solution to their disputes. In case a party is really not interested to resolve, because in cases where party is keen on litigation, because they perceive it as to be a punishment on the other side by dragging them into this long drawn battle, they will not cross over, even if you build them a golden bridge. Such person is really not interested in a settlement. And sometimes what they need is a face saving. They want to avoid face saving or the appearance of backing down to the other side. Because they have told, like, I will take you, we'll teach you a lesson in court. And suddenly you are sitting and trying to resolve that dispute. So they need that face saving at that time. Experience shows that a winner in court may ultimately be a loser in terms of time spent, litigation costs, opportunities lost. So what now works here? Expectations formed through legal counsel's advice or analysis can present the most challenge. Any conversation between counsel and client about the likelihood of success can create unrealistic expectations, even if unintended. They may lead the party to financial ruin, but they will be least interested to resolve. Party may not be interested to resolve for various reasons. A party may have anxiety about its needs not being met. Party may believe that options available in negotiation are not in its best interest. Party may not be clear on its rights. Now, these parties are best handled, as Delcy said, in separate meetings, which we refer to as caucus. Here we go deeper into the interests and feelings. We explore additional options and help develop proposals. Do some reality testing. We can ask questions like, what will happen if there is no resolution here? What is your best alternative to a negotiated solution? Will the alternative you which you are looking at will give you what you want? Do you think the court will give you what you want? How much you will be involved in determining the outcome? In the court, parties have really no control. It's the judge, lawyers who argue, the judge who decides. So they really have no control over the outcome. So these questions sometimes make them think and bring them back to reality. We can remind the parties that the issues will be decided at some point by someone, say through litigation by a judge, but negotiation is their opportunity to maximize their control over the outcome. See, there can also be issues of relationship arising from degree of trust and reliability. Mediator helps in proposing external standards of fair principles to determine how they should deal with each other. It is far easier to deal with people when both are discussing objective standards for settling a problem instead of trying to force each other to back down. So another way you can do is mediator controls the process. So you can use fair procedures independent of the will of the parties for resolving conflicting interests. In matter of valuation of properties or offers, we always request the parties to make offers which are genuine, which are in good faith, where they'll be willing to sell or buy. So in that sense, the genuine offers will emerge on the table. Once the parties have appeared before the mediator, now it is for the mediator to devise a process which will work. So ultimately, it is up to you. Once they have come from the court to you, now it is for you to now devise the method which will work for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So what you mentioned in your answer is like we need to separate the people from the problem by if they are not ready to talk on their dispute or about the perception and all about the situation or the matter, then you will be talking to them something else so that to make them easy and to build the rapport with the parties so that they should listen to you. And also by this, I understand that we should be soft with the people and hard on the problem. And the other thing which you mentioned that we should, put them such questions which trigger, the conflict which is stored in their subconscious mind. Because sometimes the parties are unable to find out that what is the main issue, why they are into dispute. So they've so much of positions and interest and need and desire mixed together, and why they are here in the dispute, they forget the reason for that being into the dispute. So by triggering those, by asking those questions, you trigger their emotions, and which will be, somehow by showing them a hypothetical situation or by making them visualize that if suppose what is the advantage of, resolving the dispute and what could be the disadvantages of resolving the dispute. So you will make them to visualize those scenarios. So this is something which is very, very good, sir. Thank you so much. And see, but this is again, I'm taking it and weaving this direction in a different manner so that everybody who are here should understand the practical nuances of the difficult situation, because everybody who are involved in the mediation, every day we are having such situation where we feel that there will be impasse and how to handle this, how to process this further. So one is that when the style was different, Dr. Law has answered that once whether mandated by the court, and there may be situation, where some people approach mediation with no interest. They don't have, interest in getting a mutual or benefit for the mutual benefits. So for this, Anil sir, I would like to ask from you that do you think that some people who approach mediation with no interest in forging mutually beneficial agreements, and their interest is only in getting what's good for them? They don't want, help the other party. They don't want to ascertain the other party's interest, but their interest is something which is very important. So they may play hardball. So when someone will not truly engage in mediation process and play difficult, so what strategy do you use to get them engaged with the process?
Yeah, that's quite natural because, as I said earlier, difficult behavior can be accidental or intentional. So it can be aggressive, it can be sustained, it can be extreme. See, at the core, if you look at any dispute, the most conflict is about needs that has not been satisfied. Not just physical needs, it can be psychological or procedural needs. So there is nothing wrong in having these needs. But sometimes difficult behavior is due to psychological needs for control or for recognition or for affection or for respect. See, for example, some people have an experience where people used to listen to them only when they interrupt or the other party or when they shout at them. And they consider this as an effective strategy to gain their attention. So they tend to use this for gaining attention of the other party. They use this as a tactics in mediation. So we may bracket them as a difficult party, but the purpose is different because it's an intentional way of grabbing attention of the other party, or maybe getting the attention of the mediator to show that, see, I need some resolution here. But the way in which they project them is like a stumbling block to the process. Sometimes when things get emotionally charged, then difficult behavior can be expected. See, and as I think JP said earlier, sometimes when a party feels disadvantaged or inconvenienced, or they are likely to, or they think that things are not likely to get better in mediation, they could come up with a difficult behavior. And another thing is sometimes people, when they feel they have absolute confidence in their position, they think that the merit of the case is so good, then also they may play difficult. See, as a mediator, if we lose our patience and self-control, definitely things are not going to improve. Our challenge is to slow down, staying steady, stable, and grounded. Gives us the strong foundation to take on the most difficult behavior of the parties. See, the underlying techniques to overcome, you are asking about the techniques. The underlying techniques is relatively simple. Don't make things complex. Stick to the basic principle of the negotiation. Separate the person from the behavior and be soft on the people. See, we need to take, as of course, all the speakers have said earlier, we need to take special effort, because when you find that a party is obstinate, or suppose the party is making a hurdle, see, we need to identify for what purpose. Is it intentional or is it accidental? We need to take it, we need to have a special effort to listen to that person, even if you disagree on what they are saying, because that is something common, because every human being will have their specific opinions about certain things. But even if you disagree on certain aspects, you need to give special effort to that person to listen to him. And as Delcy said, if needed, we need to have separate sessions with them to get into the deeper meaning of what they are trying to do and what they are. See, in most of the mediations, see, what I find is difficult people converse in two different manners. One is something that they speak verbally and something that they speak non-verbally. And what they speak verbally may not be actually what is intended. And what they speak non-verbally would convey the actual meaning behind their stubbornness or their obstinance. So it is for the mediator to identify and find out what the so-called difficult party is trying to convey to you non-verbally. That's the most difficult position in a mediation, because if a mediator gets disarrayed or he gets derailed by taking these. See, sometimes the problem is the difficult party does not. He will not be harsh against the opposite party. He can be harsh against the mediator himself. So, like Delcy said, she had to have a security guard from protecting her from a physical abuse. So these are not actually. It's about what does the party have to do with the mediator? He's not actually intending to do any harm, but he is portraying something to grab the attention of the party and the mediator. That, see, even though I'm saying these things, actually I mean this. So the difficult party, a mediator's challenge is to identify the non-verbal communication that the difficult party gives you, and not just follow what he's saying verbally. So stick on to your basics, separate the people or separate that person from his behavior, and go deeply into the meaning of what he is conveying to you. And then I feel in most of the cases, the difficult party gets to normal terms, and he will be subsequently the funniest thing is, in most of the cases, the difficult party turns out to be the most cooperative party at a later point of time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir.
So basically, let me just before you summarize it, let me say give the party the human space in the mediation so that he can open up and understand him more clearly. Yeah.
Okay, so that means if I will say the extension what you have mentioned just now, feel, deal, and heal. So that
Yes.
could be the yeah. So the non-verbal clues are very important, and then only we can feel the party, we can deal with them, and then we can heal them. So this is what I think you mean to say in
Yes.
this, and that is how we can make them to understand the interest of other party, and so that they can sit together on the mediation table. Thank you so much with this. Now, my question to you, Delcy, that you were born in Peru and now you live in Australia and had conducted mediation involving parties from different cultures. So what do you think that is the most common problem where the parties take difficult position during mediation?
Well, it is, I think if we remember what it is our job as a mediator, what is our objective? One of them is to create an environment that it is conducive for the parties to communicate efficiently. And we, of course, use different skills for that. And my colleagues have mentioned some of those. The second one is to help the parties to identify their needs and interests. Because sometimes people come to your mediation and they think they want ABC, but in reality, they want X, Y, and Z. So then that is the other job of the mediator, is to help these parties to actually identify exactly what their interests and needs are. And the third one, which to me is one of the most important objectives of a mediator, is to create empathy. So through all these, skills and through all the steps of the mediation process, what we want is the parties to understand each other. And how do we do that is, of course, we have to, again, as Anil and Francis and JP have mentioned, we use different skills. How to, make open questions, how to do reality testing, all those skills that we need for them to actually understand what it is to be in the shoes of this other person. Once you get to that point, it becomes much easier to find a resolution for the parties, because again, it's not your job as the mediator to tell them how they're going to resolve the problem. That will be too much easier. But, as a lawyer, I'm sure my colleagues who are lawyers in this session will really identify with this. It is challenging. When you come from the legal background, to become a full-time mediator is really very difficult. And it is exactly because of these things. You have to give this space to the parties to find their own solutions. So in my practice, of course, of mediation for many years now, I was just actually counting, and it's almost 29 years that I have been a mediator. And so many stories.
It doesn't look so.
You are just too kind, dear Iram. But one of the most difficult parts, of course, in mediating, one of the most common problems is exactly that lack of empathy. When you have done everything you can as a mediator, maybe an hour, 2 hours, maybe even 3 or 4 hours, and you go and do everything, and it seems that this other person just cannot see the world according to the other person. And that is a very common problem that, and that's why, this webinar is so important, because we are talking about difficult people, which, we're not trying to call them difficult, but we all know that they are difficult people. It is exactly that, this lack of empathy, and that's what I say, that sometimes mediation is not appropriate to certain cases, but you don't know until you are in there, until you get into the mediation, and then you can recognize some of these challenges, and then you can say, well, look, this is not going anywhere. And it has to be also a brave mediator to recognize that this process actually is not serving the parties. It is difficult, because we want to actually help these people to find a solution. But it takes courage to recognize at some point that, look, this is not, and as JP said, very often people come, especially in court order mediations, and they say to me, well, the judge sent me here, but the judge didn't order me to find a resolution. So they just sit there. So then, of course, you have to do, all these small talk and then try to do the reality testing. What would you do, if you don't find a solution, all that. And very often that turns around. But sometimes it doesn't. And then that's when the mediator has to be courageous enough to say, look, this is not going anywhere. I'm sorry, but we have to finish this mediation. But yeah, so that is, in my experience, Iram, around the world, and it is that. It is the lack of empathy, that it is the sign that, you probably won't get. Now, in certain mediations, especially transactional disputes, when there's a lot of money involved and not, a lot of, relationships, etc., you might sometimes push the boundaries a little bit and then achieve a financial settlement, for example. Very often, and Francis knows this, we participated in many sort of international commercial mediation conferences where the focus is on the financial settlement. However, again, there are human beings behind that. So it is not just about numbers, it's not just about money. And in my view, it's never just about money. It's never just about the law. Yeah, there's something there. There's a human component that as mediators, we are, in the obligation to uncover. However, again, going back to the point of the most common problem, the lack of empathy. Yeah.
So Delcy, what you made the point that it is the lack of empathy, and along with that you mentioned that if even after having the empathy and all the emotional quotient and everything, when the parties are not being able to handled by you, then being a mediator you should say, okay, thank you, it is not going to happen. So my question is for Anil sir, for this kind of mediator, that that when we are talking about dealing with the difficult parties, I'm interested to know from you whether the mediator could also be a difficult party, and that is difficulty for the party. So please, with the answer which Delcy has mentioned, this came in my mind. So I would like to know from you, can be a mediator difficulty for the party?
It's really a good question, and there is I don't think anybody will have a different opinion, because definitely a mediator can be a difficult party in some cases. Because see, we can confidently say an impatient mediator can definitely derail the process. There is no doubt about it. But what I would like to add here is a mediator who tries to over-impress a party can also sometimes derail the process. Because see, sometimes mediator eager to please everyone and try to portray to the parties that they are neutral, they are empathetic, and more so, many mediators I've seen, they try to portray an image that they're an ideal person with all virtues. They are like a semi-Bhagavan. See, nothing can go wrong with this. We are an ideal human being. And all of you are normal human beings who will have conflicts. But we are a special breed of people who doesn't have conflicts, and we are so nice. We are so nice to talk, and we can with one touch we can cure all your problems. See, for showing this, sometimes they tend to show deep convictions and very strong morals, and this slips to a situation of not admitting to something said by a party which he feels is wrong, and then falls into a trap of arguing or advising against it. See, this nature, or maybe you can say, call it a stubborn nature of the mediator, can make himself a very difficult party, as the mediator himself will be a cause for obstructing the smooth communication amongst the parties and also for the process. See, it can even go, or it can even make situations worse if a party criticizes a mediator for being impartial or being not neutral or being too judgmental. See, mediators, I know many mediators, but I'm not pinpointing any mediators in the panel, but mediators tend to get easily offended when they are criticized about their professional expertise or conduct. They have a very hard time in taking this hit lightly. Instead of taking the criticism in its true sense and understanding why the party has said this, sometimes they tend to deny the criticism or stay away from that party, or try to have a disconnect with the party and try to give more attention to a party whom they like. See, although the mediator is supposed to be empathetic and kind, as Delcy said, they can suddenly change their color and become very harsh and cold. So when the mediator loses his self-control and restraint, the situation does not improve. If the mediator takes those comments or opinions personally, then he will start playing negative tapes within himself, considering that party as negative or bad. So rather than putting the efforts into problem solving, the mediator tends to maybe not verbally, but tends to blame those parties mentally and try to find fault with their behavior, and thus becomes a difficult party himself, unaware that his behavior is causing the problem and not the parties. So a mediator can definitely become a difficult party in many mediations. And we have seen in many mediations, see, especially maybe in some cases, especially in co-mediation, this happens sometimes when one mediator thinks that he is better than the other mediator and he could control the party better. And he tends to overrule certain things and he tends to overtake. Primarily, as I said, a mediator who tries to over-impress a party and suggest to a party indirectly that, see, maybe this question given by the mediator is wrong. Now I am going to correct it and I am going to take it over. So these type of things actually are trying to put a hurdle in the mediation rather than taking the mediation forward. So many times mediators themselves are the reason for making the what do you call it, the soft party to become hard. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. So over impressive and over emphasis on something may lead to mediator to act as a difficult party. And also, I think what you mentioned, that I understand from that also, that if they relate some of the parties' behavior with their behavior and something is triggered to their mind, then also they may become very.
That happens sometimes when a matter is heard, the mediator immediately connects it with some of his personal issues, and maybe some of his family members or some of his relatives had such an issue, and he tries. See, at that time, he was not a mediator, but he was defending those actions, or he was supporting those actions. Now that tend to come to his mind, and that plays to the process. That can also happen. Yeah.
So that means that when we are in the mediation room and we have three people in the mediation room, like the two parties and one mediator, so we have three voices, but with those three voices we have multiple voices, which say mediator may carry their own consciously driven some things, and the parties will be having 100 people in their mind, and the party may have 100 people in their mind.
That is why we say for every negotiation there is a shadow negotiation happening within us. So that shadow negotiation is the hero or the villain of the process. Because if the shadow negotiation overtakes you, then the mediator will land up in a problem.
So that means it is very difficult to identify the difficult party. You may be a difficult party and you may be assuming that the other party is difficult, then who will tell you that you are a difficult party? So it is a difficult situation.
The thing is, no difficult party will acknowledge that he is the difficult party.
Difficult party, yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. And with this, to Francis, sir, I would like to come to you that if one party having the highest expectation, that also may give them a difficult, very hard positional situation, and in mediation, and has a higher status than the other party. So what do you think that how to balance the dynamics between the parties, and what skills sets you use?
Well, thank you, Arun. Well, I think that it's the always situation that they will have an unbalanced situation whereby between parties. One maybe have more aggressive, or they also have a high expectation, while the other maybe have lower or potentially not equal status with the other party. But for the mediator, we actually are always doing the same duty, that we have to balance to maintain their position. So I mean that their status and their equalness should be maintained all the time. That is a mediator's duty to be effective in the process of mediation, that both sides have among the same bargaining power, about the same status, and that will not, because of their position, or even say that their social status, state or other education or other changes will affect them. And also, we will have the skills that always use, as we say, that empowerment in the process of mediation, that will be have a due process. One is we have to tackle with the cases whereby our colleagues have been talking a lot for the engagement issues. For the parties, they have no intention to join. They don't value about the mediation result. They don't care about the mutual benefit or even their own benefit. In particular, we can see this case as the representative for an organization or company. They don't think that the well-being of the company or the mediation will get a better result for them. And the other thing is we will see some cases is both sides have very different position. In our training or our talk, we always say that. So one side will be the director or even the barrister or international corporate CEO. The other side may be just a normal person, a staff, or other ordinary people. So they will have a very, very big difference. And one will maybe have a very strong education background, right? The others will be not. And in some cases, they will have habits, their style. One is rather aggressive, one is so avoiding or usually pass, smoothing the case all the time they want to have. So these will make them, the situation you mentioned, one will have a better expectation, and while the others will have a higher status. And mediator have to use the skills that we say that is empowerment to help them to go into the situation, to let them, in case of they are not engaged in the process, to invite them to join the section of mediation to be more and so empower them to be engaged. They know the result and the process is important for them. So what their performance will be totally relevant to the result of mediation, and that will be a good result will bring a good result to themselves. So they will be more likely to be more engaged. And that's the skill set we do always, as Jalsi and JB have said it, they will put in separate section to help them to do that. Or, sorry, there's a fire alarm. I hope I'm not firing here. Okay, so there's another thing that's talking about when the cases, when people are having the, what they say that they think that we will try to let them have the mindset that the result is not only from the superficial as they already see. So the problem they're now facing, if they are properly resolved and getting the interest they are really identifying, can help them in that way. So they will totally engage one party or the party to that party. For the other side, on the situation where they have a very different position or different bargaining power, or we will try all the skill set to empower side to let them have the perception or they understand that they are equal to each other. That's rather important for us to help them. And the skill set we use all the time is make the process equal to both sides. Let them have the same choices and the right to make a decision, and let them know they are the decision maker. Say that if they think that, well, because of they have a high standard, they will be easily have more influential to the result rather than the other party. So what we have to tell them is both sides, you are all the boss of the whole process. You are not basically working. Well, maybe, can I stop a little bit at the moment? Because the alarm sound will affect. Maybe take other speakers speak first.
No, it's fine if you want to add on something, otherwise. Yeah, is it done? Yeah. So thank you so much, Dr. Law. So so I understand from your question that if there is a spillover of the status, high status, then in that condition, it will be like you will be separating the sessions and you will be engaging the party in that manner, so as to they feel that they are getting empowered with this session, and make process equal for both of them and maintain the equilibrium in the room, so as to give, the kind of comfort to both the parties, even irrespective of the high status or spill over the status, or one party has not the status. So by using these hacks or these skills, you can maintain the party, make them comfortable to sit in front of each other. So thank you so much, Professor Law. Now would like to ask JP sir that these are the difficult situations which we are talking about. We have discussed about the difficult people, now difficult situations. So one of the most difficult situations which even I have come across in my many cases, which I feel, and I'm sure that the many people who are practicing in mediation, they might be feeling this issue, and where one party has an injunction in his favor. It's the in the matters which are pending in the court and referred by the court to mediation, when one party has an injunction in his favor and it gives high bargaining power to one. So how do you cope or maintain the balance between those parties, that the other party who has nothing in its favor? This gives a very unequal bargaining situation. So how you handle this situation?
Iram, when you talk of bargaining power, let me borrow the words of what Delcy said: this mediation is going nowhere. And what Xavier said, it could be because of the difficult mediator himself. So no matter how skilled you are, there are limits to what you can get through negotiation. You should not expect success in negotiation unless you're able to make the other side an offer they find more attractive than their best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or BATNA as we refer to in mediation terms. See, when you talk of an injunction in favor of a party, depending on the kind of injunction that a party has in its favor, if you can make a better offer than what it can get through litigation, negotiation doesn't make sense. Instead, concentrate on improving your BATNA or change theirs. Now, in case of the injunction that you talked about, you may move an application under 39(4) for vacation of stay, or go in appeal and then attempt negotiation. So that the party knows that the injunction can go anywhere. When we talk of power in bargaining, we are just not referring to resources. Power may arise out of various other factors, like the ability to inflict harm, the ability to persuade someone to do something. Sometimes you can come up with options or use objective criteria to persuade the person with injunction to go along with the point of view of the opposite party. Now, let me explain it to you. See, when I said when you can cause discomfort or nuisance for the other side, it happens in IPR matters. You can flood the market with in spite of the injunction. There's a contempt, of course, you face, but they do that through other parties, cause more nuisance. I mean, the party who cannot be identified with the defendant, and therefore weaken the other party's injunction, which they may have. So that's one way of doing it. Now, let me tell you what the parties generally do. Take the case of a partition suit, where the plaintiff obtains an injunction of status quo. The defendants also have a share in the property. They can come up with various proposals like valuation of the shares, rebuilding the property, or buyout or sellout options, which are much better than a court auction through litigation. These options have worked in so many cases that I have mediated. Now, whether resources give you negotiating power will depend on the context. As I said, on whom you are trying to persuade and what you want them to do. They say that there is a power in inventing an elegant option. Now, a property in which there are 4 co-owners can easily be developed. So each of them have a floor to live in, which is much better than looking for another property for the money which each co-owner will get by sale of the property. So it depends on how you deal with that situation. Sometimes a status quo in a court can work in favor of the defendant. In a case where the creditor got an injunction against the sale of the debtor's property, It suited the defendant to delay the proceedings because he knew the government was coming out with another policy. There was an airport coming in that next neighborhood. All negotiations to arrive at an agreed amount in repayment had failed. Due to change in policy of the government, the value of the property shot up, and the defendant paid off the debts of the debtor and was still left with some extra money for itself. So it all depends on the situation. The party who seems to be weaker can develop its partner or generate options which can persuade the seemingly stronger party to go along with it. It all depends on the context. As I said, if you cannot make the other side an offer which is better than partner, then negotiation doesn't make sense. Mediator's central goal is usually to handle problems caused by application of power to the negotiation process. Dr. Law talked about one of them. When a senior appears against a workman or a person who's really not very qualified. You rightly said, the person with injunction in his favor is considered more powerful. Powerful people accommodate less, have the opportunity to label the conflict or define its parameters, and have the least interest in ensuring that the resolution of the conflict meets the needs of all the parties involved. They will not look at that. Now, here, as a mediator, you help the other party to generate options, dig deeper into interests of the other side, and develop their partner. That's the only thing which can, neutralize the injunction. As William, let me just take out, from a leaf from William Ury and Roger Fisher's book. In response to power, I'm quoting from there. In response to power, the most any method of negotiation can do is to meet two objectives. First, to protect you against making an agreement you should reject. Second, to help you make most of your assets you do have, so that any agreement you reach will satisfy your interests as well as possible. So this is the manner in which I feel if you increase your partner or weaken the other side's partner, that's where you can balance the power in terms of negotiating power you talked about.
Thank you so much. So this is very useful answer. I think that because you highlighted that if the party who is having injunction in their favor, if we are able to give them something better than that, then the entire situation may be neutralized and diluted, and it may be good for other party also sometimes. And so what I feel from your answer, something I'm getting it like. So it is not a mediation is not one party game or the single party game. It is the multi-party game who are sitting inside the mediation room, and every party has to contribute from each respective side. So we need good mediation lawyers who can help the parties to develop their APCAMs. So if we are going in the mediation room with our all alternatives, and then based on the information or the confidential we are getting, we are able to select or shift from different APCAMs to select our partner. So that will perhaps help us to even where the different dynamics of the situation, or there is a different bargaining power, one you can able to neutralize those bargaining power in that manner. So this is very good answer. And yeah, so that for that we need more mediation coaches. That means we stop now training mediators. We should start training mediation lawyers and mediation coaches, so as to help the entire ecosystem, and so that if all the parties and the parties in the mediation room should get benefit out of it. So thank you so much for this, and it's like a very good discussion going on. I feel that we should have part 2 of handling difficult situation and difficult party, because we will not be able to cover each and everything which gives the different situation for the difficult parties. And so this is the question which I would like to ask. This is a common question I would like to end with, but I need to have all of your views. So we'll be starting from Francis sir, then JP sir, Delcy, and Anil sir and Delcy. So the thing is that I would like to know from your view, from your experience, you handled. So with any case which you handled, and you feel that these are the most difficult part and the most difficult case which you have handled, and you want to share with all the participants who are sitting in the mediation in this webinar, and they want to know from you. So I would like to start from Francis, sir, if you would like to, share your experience dealing with a difficult party.
My pleasure. Yeah, sure. What we've been in the life of, I have not been working for Mediator for 29 years as Delcy. I just got 15, so maybe a little bit younger than that. Okay, just forget it. No, yeah, we do have a lot of cases to come up with quite different or difficult party will involve, especially they are involving some relationship. They have a very strong position about it. I have come up, of course, in board director, the shareholding dispute. So they have been partner for forming organization, a company for 30 years. And they are friends before joining as a partner. So they actually is a couple at the time. After 10 years of co-working in that organization, their company built up, and then they have come up to, turn to shower, and then the relation broke up. So for the rest 20 years, they getting to be very fight with each others and not touch with each others for 20 years. When they come up to have a final resolution of the company, they involve about the share difference. They come up with a dispute for over $20 million US, and then have to fix the case. But when the whole process started, we found it is quite difficult to do because they are remain in a very strong position. They not trust each other. They even have a very strong enmity or hostility against each side. So that will help in the process. Even we have a long period for PVD for 1 month's time to come up with understand for both sides and put their expectation and also for their understanding, prepare them for the mediation of long time. I mean the psychological situation, but still they remain really difficult to listen to, not only to the other side, but to themselves. What they are really need, what they are really concerned cannot be touched on. So that is at the time when we have to come up with the both side lawyers, and luckily they are advocates. They have come up with support in building up the trust between the party and the advocate to understand more about what they will need and prepare the party to get understanding how they can get in the process to avoid further damage on their interests through the process, or they will face a very strong litigation process or consequence if they continue the situation at the moment. They will large portion of their wealth will be jeopardized in the process. And finally, after the hard work for all 5 parties, including the advocate and also the mediator, they come up to the mediation sections 1.5 months after the beginning. So in the process, they get finally getting the more easy talk understanding for the process. And finally, they come up with a very good settlement agreement and clear all the issues. Well, we're talking about a very big amount of this. We're talking about 20 million US. But the problem is even difficult is about why they are very difficult is concerning their previous relationship, breached relationship for 20 years. And before that, they have a very close relationship as a couple. So that will be why we say that there's they not listen to each other. They're not trying to listen to the party, and also to the mediator or lawyer throughout the whole process. We take a lot of time to prepare them. Just like in the mediation, we will start to let them connect to not only to the other side, but mediator and also with the advocate. So they understand themselves, their needs and concerns, taking more time to change their expectation and put them to a more stable emotion, more calm, to have a sophisticated or educated consideration for their interests, what they are going to achieve. That is the stage 2 of expectation management. And finally, we put them and help them, the advocate help them to build different options. They will available that will be slightly higher than their partner, as JP said that. So they will go to the other side with the negotiation for this kind of options. And finally, they will trim down to be a very narrow difference and fill that with the skills from the mediators, what can help them to finally close the gap. And that is what we say that the process we have to take a very long time to manage the expectation and also get them connected to themselves and the other side.
Thank you so much. So now I would like to go to Delcy, but Delcy, before you share your experience, in mediation, I would like, since you have done a lot of mediations and a mediation who has been, has the element of a lot of emotions. And so before you share your experience, I would like to know, to comment, a quick comment on, like, suppose if a party create difficult position due to their behavioral issue. So do you think that the mediator should extend a bit to the neurological alignment as well? And if little bit you can highlight, because I know your diverse experience into this, handling the emotional disputes, if a bit on this and then your experience, so it will be very helpful for all the participants.
Thank you for the question, Iram. It is actually a very complex situation indeed when you have a party who, of course, we are not psychologists or psychiatrists, so we, only can see what is in front of us. And indeed, very often, there are characteristics that suggest that this person might not be emotionally available to participate in the mediation. So what do you do? I mean, one thing is, of course, you anticipate this situation by conducting a pre-mediation session for me. And in this pre-mediation, I would identify certain maybe issues that this person has. And before participating in mediation, I will discuss with this party the need of either go to counseling or to do something to address those challenges. So then when this person participates in mediation, it is going to be more beneficial for this party. But again, I have to say that even if you are a psychologist and a mediator, if you are doing a mediation, you're not a psychologist. You might have that as a background. The same with us as lawyers, It is not our role to provide legal advice, even though we know the law. So it is, a very, to me, very important that mediators who do not, come from the legal profession, but come from social sciences or even psychologists, that they refrain themselves to actually behave as a psychologist in that mediation. So the ethical thing would be for these mediators / psychologists to refer this person to another service or to a counseling session. But again, I'm sure that some of you have come across with situations where when you're talking with one party, this party will complain about the other one. You'll say, oh, this person has, bipolar disorder and this and that. You talk to the other party says even worse health situations from the other one. So, then you end up with these parties saying to the mediator that one is more sick than the other mentally, And so one thing, very practical question that I have used successfully in this kind of situation is, again, in caucus, just call a private session and say, you just mentioned that the other party has all these conditions, I wonder, are these conditions being diagnosed by a physician? Very often the answer will be no. So there is a self-diagnosis that they have made to each other. Of course, in some instances, the diagnosis will be made by a physician. Then, of course, what you need to do as a mediator is a different thing. But I will refrain myself as to go into this. I know there are different things. You can use different games to make your right brain work better for the mediation and all these kind of things, neurological things and that. I think we should, and I agree with JP, we should not overcomplicate things. We go back to the basics, as Anil said as well. It is about finding the humanity on these people. And very often 15 minutes of listening actively to somebody makes the treat. This person suddenly becomes, okay, somebody has paid 15 minutes of attention to me, and then they are ready to go. You know, but of course, as we say, horses for courses, there are different situations and we have to adapt to these things. So now to the, I think you asked me what was the most-
Your experience, yeah.
Well,
difficult.
the most difficult, I'll be very brief. I know it's been going for some time, our webinar. Probably this case many years ago, a very big organization here in Australia, it was a work-related dispute. It was between a supervisor and a supervisee. The supervisor was a lady and the supervisee was a gentleman. But why was it difficult? It was because the lady, the supervisor, did not show any of the signs of being a difficult party. Like if she was not aggressive, she was not interrupting. She was completely the opposite. Her answers will be yes. Yes, maybe. So it didn't matter what I did. Try to encourage and, open questions, all these things, but she was just not participating. So it was so challenging, so difficult, because I could see that could be a solution. Finally, I moved them into private sessions or separate rooms, and I just wanted to understand why she was with this behavior. And I realized that that was her personality. There were some very deep issues that she needed to go through counseling, etc. So, at the end, they did get an agreement, but it was really very, very difficult to get there.
Okay, so the party who shows very, very simple and not very complex, they turn out to be complex in the end because of non-participative behavior. So this is something
Correct.
new which come to know from your story, that to add the characteristic is non-participative behavior and the characteristic of a difficult party. So with thank you so much, Delcy, to highlight the neurological alignment and this psychological issues and the bipolar personalities and all those things. So with this, Anil sir, any difficult case or no difficult case, whatever it is, if you want to share with us.
There have been hundreds of difficult cases where we were put to surprise. But taking the cue from Delcy, because she was talking about the neurological thing. I think about some 15, 16 years back, I had a family mediation where there was a dispute between a husband and wife. And the wife was very cooperative and making all efforts to resolve the dispute. But the husband was really very offensive, non-cooperative, hard,
As usual.
and not moving forward and not cooperating with any options or suggestions given by her. I was internally very happy with the way the wife was cooperating, and I hoped that some sense would prevail on the husband who was obstructing the entire process. And my efforts were entirely concentrated on trying to make him at ease and trying to resolve the dispute with him. I had absolute faith in the other party because that she was very easy to to navigate. But after a few sessions, when things were coming to normal and resolutions were becoming visible, to my utter shock and surprise, the wife became so obstinate and unreasonable. Later, I understood that she was suffering from multiple personality disorder, and she was very moody, and the moods could change very, very fast. So I learned that all that glitters are not gold. So the neurological issues and the multiple disorder problems and assuming that one person is soft and other person is hard can tend to be entirely wrong in some mediation. So this was just an example because of what Delcy said. I thought I will take this example as a dreadful experience. But there were hundreds of.
Will you be able to handle her or what?
No. Ultimately, we came up with a resolution, but it was a surprise because actually, if I can tell you, the resolution was coming up in the 16th or maybe 20th hour. But then, having faced this, then the mediation went to about 118 hours. We took about 118 hours to resolve the dispute. But ultimately, it got resolved. But this turn of events happened at the very early stage.
you so much, sir. JP, sir. Your experience.
In fact, my biggest problem was with a person who, minus a law degree, thought he was a lawyer. And this party had, this litigation had been going on for years. The generation which started it had gone. He was the only elder left. And now on the other side were all the siblings of the brothers, his, younger brothers and elder brothers. So he was the only man in that age bracket left. And he was so full of what he did when the income tax appeal was filed. He argued it himself. He had saved the property. And there were, several properties involved in that particular matter. The value, let me give you the value, 2,300 crores. So you can imagine what was the extent of, and the shares had been determined by the court. Now the matter was going for trial. At that stage, the judge said, since the matter has been, pending for such a long time, he said, let me refer it for mediation. Why don't you try mediation? Now, this gentleman, first, he was steeped, in his past. He did this to save all the properties, so he must get recognition. He was looking for validation. So validation happened. All the youngsters said, we actually honor whatever you've done. Now, the shares are determined. So let's now divide the properties, or if it is not possible, let's see how the properties can be sold and the money can be divided. So this gentleman starts with that all the properties must be sold at one go. So I told him, like, there are about 20, 30 properties. How will you sell all the properties? How would you advertise and how do you go about selling all those properties? So with difficulty, I persuaded him, okay, fine, let's get the valuation on the table. So to that, his answer was, look, papers are not with me. The youngsters have all the papers. Unless I inspect the properties and get all the papers of the properties, and I cannot give a value. So fine, we said, let everybody else give the value. Would you accept that valuation? He said, okay, let the others give their valuation and I will look into it. So all the other 4 groups gave their valuation. And then it came to him. He said, no. I still cannot, make up my mind. So I said, sir, now tell me something. You have 1/5 share. There, according to them, the value is about 2,300 crores. Why don't, so they said, okay, you take the first choice with, as per your share, please pick up the properties. He was not agreeable even to that. I mean, it went on. We had several sessions and the whole thing went on for good 6 months and the trial dates were coming. So I told him, look, I don't think this is going to work like this. Then, what they did, 3-4 of them got together. The other 4 got together and said, give him his share, or if he doesn't, we are settling, put his share in the court, send the matter back for trial. So they wanted a partial settlement, to which he was again not agreeable.
Very difficult party.
The matter went back to the court. And at that stage, probably he realized, he told the judge, I want to go back for mediation. Judge said, no, this is too much. Now let's proceed with the trial. You do whatever you want to here. I'm not sending the matter back for mediation. And so therefore, I find people, who think that they are lawyers, and he would not come with a lawyer. So he would not take help of the other lawyers also. And the result was, this became very difficult. So a person who thinks that he is a lawyer minus a degree, I think is the most difficult thing that I've had.
Yeah, and I would like to add this. Suppose there is a trained mediator who will come as a lawyer with the party, is also something which is a very great difficulty. They will judge the mediator throughout and he will not allow that this mediation should be done by you, but you are not a proper person to handling it.
That's what Mr. Xavier said. The mediator himself is a difficult person.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a very great discussion, but as I told you in the beginning that there will be a surprise for all the panelists, not all the participants, but all the panelists. So now we have seen all the panelists' expertise in handling the difficult situation and the difficult party. Now let me put some difficult question to you to show how difficult you are and or in other way, how simply you will manage this situation. So these are the only 3 questions, very quick and short and crisp answer, maybe 2 or 3 words or 1 or 2 sentences. So Delcy, first question for you. According to you, who among three panelists could be difficult party as well as difficult mediator, and why?
You are trying to create a dispute, Iram.
Mediator, see, we are mediators. We can handle the situation also. So this is a difficult situation for you, and need to test whether you are difficult or who are the difficult party among these panelists who are giving, servants to handling the dispute.
So do you mean who from my three colleagues will be a difficult party on a
Yes,
mediation?
because you have done pre-mediation session with all of them. Because you heard everybody. Now you please try to tell me that who are the difficult party and difficult mediator, and why?
Well, look, I think I know Francis quite well, and Anil, of course, before even Francis. So I think with both of them will be great. With JP, I just met him. I think he will be wonderful as a party. No, will be wonderful as a party. Maybe I will be difficult as a mediator. Maybe I will be a bit pushy. Maybe.
Very, manipulative answer, Delcy, I must say.
It was a very mediatoric answer.
And I am happy that this answer is posed to you. Otherwise, I would be the one who will be coming under that bracket. You are kind enough not to put my name again in that category. So thank you so much, Delcy. And so now, Anil sir, for you, see, as a mediator capable of handling difficult parties, bipolar parties, and different parties, do you think your skills will help you in handling your spouse when she becomes difficult, and why?
See, I don't think any of us sitting here will have a different answer. What is the doubt? That no skill is going to be effective. The only option is to surrender. See, you remember the boxing fight between Mike Tyson and Fraser. Do you think Fraser did not have the skills and expertise to do the boxing, but he got knocked out in 30 seconds? See, we can use the skill only if the other party allows us to get into the ring. So the only option is to surrender.
So Gandhian philosophy, like if you slap this side, please, this cheek is also for you. Okay.
If you slap on my right cheek, my left cheek also is available.
Okay, so total surrender. Okay, so now to Francis.
I'm ready.
Who, according to this is more sane question. So who, according to you, is more difficult, Trump or Putin, and why?
You mean among us, so?
Putin or Trump?
Putin may be better.
Putin better.
Yeah.
Because obviously the neurological problem is not there.
Okay. Okay.
Because I always say that Trump will be the idol of me. I will be so admired to his crazy works. So I will choose Putin as well.
Yeah, this question reminds me the AMA conference. There was a conference in AMA in 2018, I guess, in November, and where there was a topic, yeah, Trumpian negotiation. Yeah, and so for you, JP sir, according to you, who could be the difficult parties in mediation, like politicians or artists, or the film actor or actress? So and why?
People who I think politicians basically can be handled, but an artist who lives in a world of his own is very difficult to handle. Because they are in their own world, and anyway, I've never been able to understand art. So I mean, a brush by Hussein was told as a $1 million painting. I couldn't understand why. So if I couldn't understand their paintings, I'm sure I will not be able to understand the human being behind it. So I find the artist maybe the most difficult person. Actor and actresses and politicians.
So artist is most difficult. So we may say that the mediator are artists.
Of course, it's an art form. Mediation, I always say it's science and art both. I mean, science in the sense like, there is a fundamental method in how you do it. And art is like, how you play the piano. I mean, you learn how to play the piano, but ultimately you play it by the heart. So that's the art. How you do it, that's the most difficult part.
The crux of this webinar is the mediator is artist, and artist is the most difficult part. Difficult party.
That's why, JP, you do have an abstract painting behind you, I think.
Yeah, I have not been able to understand the meaning of it. But I was told it's something good, so you can put it behind.
Amazing.
So in fact, indeed, what I would like to say that the rise above the behavior of others and maintain your high standard in negotiation. This is what I would like to say in the end. And this was a very, I say, mesmerizing webinar. You know, after attending this webinar, I'm sure that none of the participants will anymore have difficulty in dealing difficult parties or the difficult situation. And this webinar played an important role in inculcating necessary skills required while handling a difficult party in mediation. And as expected, the speaker of this webinar showed their experience and knowledge to the participants. So in my opinion, every word spoken today by the distinguished speakers in this webinar must be treated as a typed and added to all shall be, added to the, even in the curriculum for the every mediation training program for understanding that how mediation involves a difficult party has to proceed. And what I feel that after having this recorded session, we will be converting into a transcript in the question and answer form, and we'll publish it because we are not having much, discussions and much material on this. And I would like to, have a part 2 for dealing with a difficult situation and difficult party after, having the successful webinar after having this. So we will publish this also. Here, I would like to ask from the participant, if you would like to ask any question, if you want me to ask, then please put in the chat box. And if you want to ask directly, then you can unmute and ask. So I could see Dinesh.
Yes,
Dinesh.
Yes, thank you so much for this lovely webinar. And my questions are directed to Delcy and JP, both, to their respective portions, what they have covered. One is that when we talk of pre-mediation conference, and then we are saying that go to mediation, proper mediation. In my opinion, we are undermining the process of mediation, and we are having an extended, unofficial, informal thing when we have already sorted out more or less there. And then we go to the mediation. That means mediation is just a formality. Is that correct? That's one. To JP, my question is that we are now involving the mediation to the court process. If I'm so strong and I get the injunction, why should I come for mediation? And going and mixing the litigation, making yourself powerful before coming for mediation, I think it's not a win for mediation. Thank you so much.
Who would like to go first? Delcy?
Okay. Dinesh, thank you very much for your question and for attending the session. Pre-mediation, in fact, is not a separate process from the mediation itself. We must understand that in different jurisdictions, the model of mediation changes. For example, in Germany, the use of caucus does not exist. The majority of mediation processes in Germany does not include a caucus session because they part from the premise that all the session has to be with the parties together in the same room. So they wouldn't even separate parties in different rooms. So that's the first thing. Different countries, different jurisdictions have different models of mediation. But the one I am explaining, and the fact that I use pre-mediation as part of the mediation section in itself, it gives me an opportunity as a mediator to meet the parties, to discuss with them one-on-one in a confidential manner, and try to identify what would be the challenges of this person. For example, when we talk about power imbalance, I might identify in the pre-mediation session that this party, in fact, might require assistance in the way he or she communicates. It might be a cultural issue. It might be that this person comes from a culture where certain things need to be in place in order for him or her to participate effectively in the mediation process. But it also gives me, as a mediator, the opportunity to create a bond with this person. It gives me an opportunity to listen to this person and try to understand where she or he is coming from. Very often these pre-mediation sessions are just 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, depending on the complexity of the case. And I do it always, as a matter of course, with the parties involved, of course, one-on-one. I never have the pre-mediation session together. It is only with each party separately. But what has allowed me during all these years to have a very successful practice is exactly the fact that the parties then, when they come to the joint mediation session, I am not a stranger, I'm not a person they don't know. They have already met me in the pre-mediation session. They have trust in me, they have confidence in me, and it is very likely then that in the joint session, both parties will interact in a better manner with the information that I have and with the things that I can put in place in order to create the environment that will help these parties to find a resolution. So it is not a separate, we are not making it more complex. In fact, pre-mediation is allowing me to have a more effective and more successful joint mediation session. But the other thing is, in many cases, in the pre-mediation, I would identify that the parties don't want to be in the same room. There are many instances here in Australia where there are court orders that forbids parties to be in the same room for different reasons, or the parties themselves don't want to be in the same room at the beginning of the session. So it is, to me, of importance to have all this information so to cater and to create a mediation process for these particular people. So it's not one size fits all. To me, a mediation process should be tailored to the needs of the parties that will attend the mediation session. So I could talk a lot more about that. I'm a firm believer of these pre-mediation sessions. So I hope that I have responded to your question, Dinesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Bishnoi, let me answer your question in 3 different ways. First, there is uncertainty of litigation. Even when you get an injunction in your favor, it can be upset in appeal. We have had cases where you win in 2 courts and the 3rd court upsets the injunction. I mean, we won before the single judge, before the division bench, and the Supreme Court upset the injunction. So there's uncertainty of litigation. Second, there are cases in which defamatory suit, which was filed and injunction was obtained, and the litigation was going on, the matter was sent for mediation. Parties realize the litigation cost at the end of the day will be much more than what ultimately, the nominal damage that the party may have suffered, which cannot be anywhere repaired. So parties were willing, in spite of the injunction, to settle the matter, and the matter was settled. Third, the kind of solution that you can get in mediation, you will never get in litigation. Now, this was a case where, a person, a known brand of jeans, got an injunction against a party which was duplicating its own jeans with that same name. It was a very, alert judge who realized once the party said that the quality of jeans that the other side defendant was making was very good compared to their jeans that they were being made. So they said that we'd like to go for mediation in spite of the injunction being there. The party who got the injunction went to see the place where those jeans were being manufactured and realized those standards were very good. And ultimately, that person, the defendant, became a sub-agent, of the plaintiff. and was selling the jeans with the same name. Of course, they were manufacturing it here in India with a better quality. So all this can happen in case if mediation happens, which parties would have not got in court. So these are three answers for your purposes, why in spite of an injunction, parties should still go for mediation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Delcy and JP sir. So that means if we stick with the process, then the outcome will be miraculous. The core is that we should be stick with the process and stick with the basics. So there is one question for you, Anil sir, and some supplement. The Francis sir, would you like to add something to this also? That the question is, when both the parties are in attitude that they want to go to the court, and they don't want to go to the court, and they want their problem to be resolved in mediation only, and but they don't want to accept each other's interest. So how mediator will find solution, solve the problem of both the party? So Anil sir and Francis sir, would you like to answer for this?
Yeah, see, if you have two parties who want a resolution out of mediation, but if they are not understanding the interest, or if they are not understanding, or if they are not able to give what the other person needs, see, then of course it's a classic situation where the mediator is in a very good position, because see, ultimately both the parties want a resolution. It's a very good point. And how you cater the requirements, or you mold the parties to understand the interest and what benefit you get out of it. Because see, like what we say, see, the earlier trend, because the human tendency is such that you will not be happy if you have a win-win situation, because even if the other person wins and you win, you want something extra for you. So that is something that that's a basic human tendency now. So that is why now we say good for you and better for me. So that means if the mediation lawyer or somebody is there to assist him, and if you can point out that even if the other person is getting his interest, you are getting something which is better than him. So even if the ultimate solution is good for him, which he's agreed to accept, the solution is giving something which is better to you. So that means you are getting better than what other person is getting. So give him what due share he is seeking for, because this is the best chance that you have to get something which is better than any other options. So the mediator's role is actually to put into the mind of the person that what he is actually doing by agreeing to the other person is getting something which is better to him. So actually that is a very ideal situation in a classic mediation stage, where the parties are willing to come to a resolution, but actually they are having the pain of allowing something to the other person, even though I am gaining it. So that of course it's a mediator's job to handle it.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, I agree with Chairman's the position about this. Yeah, for the very basic one, is our duty is let the party, if they don't understand why they have to take care of other side's interests through the whole process. But the very important thing is for both parties themselves, they should have the idea to resolve the cases with an effective and better result. That is to their own interest. But get another side, get the interest or get a win-win situation is a tools or ways to facilitate the way they can maximize their return through the process. So the basic principle is not only talking about let the other side have their situation or their interest gain, but the problem is through this process, you can achieve a higher return through the process, because the collaboration for the stakeholder will achieve a better result, because 1 + 1 is greater than 2. This is a basic principle. And that we have as a mediator to let them know. Another thing I want to get some response for Dennis' question about the pre-meeting arrangement. So for the other process, it's very simple. They are not the decision maker. So all the decision maker have the power and understand on how to make the decision, like the judge, like the arbitrator. But in mediation is totally different. The decision maker is the party themselves, but they don't know how to make a wise decision to protect their rights. Okay, so that's the problem, and that's why mediation have to effect is to let the party empower them to know how to effectively make a decision in exchange with the other side. And that's why we have to prepare the party to do this work. through the pre-meeting session. If you rely on the section for the mediation section itself, sorry, you cannot make it because they don't know how to do it. You cannot manage their expectation and learning through the process. And that's the purpose for the pre-meeting, is properly prepare party, those are the decision maker, to well make a decision beforehand. And that will be easier for us to understand. And there's a major difference between other dispute resolution process.
Okay, thank you so much. So with this question, I understand that with this answer, I understand that mediator should, make the party not only to claim in the mediation, but create value in the mediation or to add value in the mediation. And with this, successfully, we are able to finish this, the long discussion within 2 hours. And I feel that this should not be the end. This is the beginning. And now I'm very much, excited to continue with this practical, sessions in APCAM so that we can have, a roadmap regarding these kind of difficulties which we are facing during conducting our mediation in day-to-day life. So every good thing come to an end, and I have given a task to all the participants to write one, one word about this webinar. So if they will be writing one word, then it will become a poetry. So, so that is how.
Before you wind up, Iram, let me congratulate you for putting up such a wonderful questions to all our panelists. And I think that was wonderful that it navigated into a very effective. It was almost nothing less than a training because the questions were actually put in a connecting position so that everything was connected so well. And with your questions and maybe with the effort that all the entire panel did, I hope the participants also, instead of 1.5 hours, they were, even though they were put to a difficult position of 2 hours, they were able to handle it. So handling difficult position was actually practically demonstrated by having a 2-hour webinar when we were originally anticipating only a 1.5 hour webinar. Thank you, Iram, for the wonderful, and thank you, panelists, for the wonderful, wonderful answers and wonderful, coordination of things. So even though I'm a panelist on behalf of APCAM, I would thank you for being such a wonderful speakers for this session.
Mr. Xavier, that's what this is. The credit for the good symphony always goes to the conductor.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Aaron.
Thank you.
Completely agree. Thank you very much, everybody.
This is in the end, indirectly, you mentioned that appreciation is one way to handle the difficult party. So if you appreciate, then the other difficult party will be, more comfortable. This thing. So let me, what task I have given to all the participants, I'll be finishing that, in a minute. I will not take a minute. So, so if I am reading this, what the participant has mentioned in the chat box, so it will be like in a poetry that about it, like enlightening, excellent, very informative, insightful, impressive, super valuable, informative, terrific, awesome, and intriguing session, wonderful, incomparable, with a smile, valuable information, handle difficulty without difficulty, refreshing, enlightening, and so on. So this is how, with a word, we create, we have given a poetic situation, a poetic ending to this webinar. And thank you so much, everyone, to be here. And as we say that it is a rule of the nature that everything comes to an end. So does the time for our webinar, but I am sure that this end will be a new beginning for every participant to implement, explore, understand, and research more about what they understood today, because it is not about mediation, it is way of, your way of life. And every day we also deal with difficult people. So these techniques, these skills will be helpful for you in your day-to-day life as well, apart mediation. So as we are heading towards the end of this webinar, I would like to thank our speakers for sharing their wisdom, experience, and knowledge with us. I would like to say thanks to our lovely participants for joining this event, and hope this webinar proves to be fruitful. Wish you all the best, and thank you so much. And stay tuned for the next webinar as well.